our nation, for the members of this House. May they work diligently to bring about solutions to the pressing issues of these times. Bless all men and women across our country, especially those who work in the service of others, police, teachers, medical personnel, and the members of our civil service. May all that is done this day be for your greater honor and glory, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Let's say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
This House is in session. Meeting for the minutes for the meeting held on Tuesday, October 26, 2021, to be deferred. Honorable Leader, Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the aforesaid minutes be deferred.
The question is that the aforementioned minutes be deferred. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it. The aforementioned minutes are hereby deferred.
Announcements by Your Honor. Messages from Her Excellency the Governor General. Petitions. Papers.
Mr. Speaker, I am commanded to lay the annual report and audited financial statements of Needham's Point Development, Inc. for the financial year ended March 31st, 2020, as well as the annual report and audited financial statements of Needham's Point Holdings Limited for the financial year ended March 31st, 2020.
Government notices.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of a resolution to approve, in accordance with Section 5 of the Land Acquisition Act, Cap 228, the compulsory acquisition by the Crown of parcels of land at Sergeant's Village in the parish of Christchurch in this island for the public purpose, namely housing development.
Private members' notices. Notice of questions. Reports from select committees. First reading of bills. Statements by ministers. Congratulatory and or obituary speeches. Personal explanations. Motions for leave of absence. Or replies to questions. Notice of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance. Orders of the day.
Honorable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of standing orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, subsection 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Was this seconded? The question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Sir, we commit to government notice. Government notice recommitted.
Honorable Member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Whistleblower Protection Bill 2021.
Questions that the aforementioned bill be read a first time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
First reading of bills.
Speaker, I beg to move that the Whistleblowers Protection Bill 2021 be read the first time.
The questions that the aforementioned bill be read a first time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Government business. Order number 9, sir. In the name of the Honorable Minister of Finance, to resume the debate on the second reading of the Debt Settlement Arrears Bill 2021.
Government business is the order of the day. The honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As I indicated last week, sir, the intention with respect to this bill is to create the framework with respect to us being able to settle the arrears of government and do so in an orderly process that allows the persons who are affected, sir, some relative certainty with respect to the payments for what clearly has been long-standing obligations owed, not just under the Land Acquisition Act, but a number of other key things that have been in dispute. And I can only stress, sir, that this process will facilitate bringing to finality and to some satisfaction, sir, over a process of time with respect to where the economy is and where Barbados is, and the way that we're going to be managing our fiscal affairs going forward, to do so in an orderly fashion. Last week, sir, it was my intention to update the House with respect to a number of key matters in relation to our debt framework, and I intend to do so now just very quickly, sir, for the benefit, because one of the things that is important for the public to understand in the environment in which we are operating is that the ability for government to finance the public goods and services, sir, and I say finance, and I reiterate, we need the economy to remain open, and to even see more economic activity taking place, sir, so that the revenue that is being collected from that, sir, from the said activity will ease the financing burden. But equally, sir, recognizing that we have not yet fully recovered the revenue that we lost in fiscal year 2020-21, sir, and we are trying to get back to those levels as quickly as possible, that financing the gap, sir, is critical, and therefore
I believe that the last time this bill, you had introduced this bill, you had moved this bill, correct, sir? Yes. Right. And that you had, in moving the bill, you spoke on the rationale for the bill, et cetera, et cetera. I would be correct in saying, sir, that the purpose today is basically to withdraw this bill and substitute it, correct, sir? Correct, honorable member? Is that correct, honorable member?
Yes, Mr.
Because you had moved the second reading before.
Yes, sir.
Right. So that if you had moved the second reading of the bill before, under the requisite standing order, basically, you're asking with the leave of the House to really withdraw the bill and then substitute thereof a bill, sir. because, given the fact that you had moved it before and you had done your second reading before. I'm correct in saying that, sir, that you moved the bill and you'd give the reading before, sir? Am I not correct in saying that, sir?
Mr. Speaker,
Did he
We're all
move the
trying
second
to-
reading of the bill prior,
the
sir?
second reading of the bill
Right.
was moved.
Right.
And from so the leader of the opposition spoke, several of us spoke,
That is correct.
but I don't recall if the member did the wrap-up.
He did the wrap-up?
He didn't do the wrap-up. We deferred for further consideration,
Right.
so that on this occasion, he is entitled to do the wrap-up that he did not do last time.
That is correct, sir. If it is not for the purpose, if I'm hearing correctly, really understand and appreciate what you're saying, his purpose also is to withdraw the bill and substitute it thereof. Honourable member.
Not necessarily. My recollection is that having discussed it with the honourable member, he wanted to make a slight amendment, but he needed to get the language right. So we could move the amendment in committee.
Right, so this is what I'm trying to ascertain. Is he therefore seeking to amend? I don't have a problem if he's seeking to amend. Rather than if he's seeking to withdraw and substitute
The
thereof.
amendment would only be moved in committee.
Yeah, understood, but what I'm trying to find out is, because what I was told before is that he was seeking to withdraw and substitute thereof. So if he's seeking to withdraw and substitute thereof, that is different from if he's seeking to amend in committee. I have no problem if he's seeking to amend in committee and he wraps up on that basis. However, if he's seeking to withdraw and substitute, that is different, honourable member. Under the standing order 55, it is different. Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it would be ridiculously funny if it were not so very serious that the government seems not to know what it is about on an important matter like this, and particularly so the Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance. How can we come to the Parliament and not be clear as to what we are about on a matter like this? I was under the impression that this debate, having been suspended at the last sitting, the honourable member was wrapping up. But he began by saying to the House that he was going to introduce in all types of new information. Now I am hearing about withdrawal, amendment, and presentation of a new bill. And I have not been advised of that. If it is a new bill to be presented, it means the opposition has the opportunity to speak again. We need to be clear about what we are. How could the government get it wrong on a matter as simple as this?
Honourable member, this is why I am.
Mr.
This is the
Speaker.
purpose I am here. This is precisely why I am here, as it relates to guidance of the House, so that if it is for an amendment, then it will be so guided. If it's for withdrawal and substitute thereof, that is why I am here. That is the purpose of why I am sitting in this chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me respond by stating, sir, that last week I indicated that we were intending to make a few amendments. It is my intention this morning, sir, to wrap up the debate and in committee, sir, to identify what those amendments are. The CPC has already drafted what those amendments will be so that we have absolute clarity, sir, with respect to the bill. So when we go into committee, sir, I will clearly identify what the amendments are so that we can move forward, sir, with clarity. So so respectfully, sir, I hope that gives clarity to the chamber in terms of what is intended here this morning. So I am not introducing anything new, sir. In the context of the debate, I had indicated last week, sir, very clearly that I had come last week with I had every intention, sir, of giving the House an update with respect to where the debt was. Obviously, circumstances didn't allow me to do that at the time, but I was responding specifically to some queries that the leader of the opposition raised with respect to the performance of BOSS, and it was going into the context, sir, just to lay out lay out the context in which this debate was being done. So I am not in any way confused as to what my intention is here this morning, sir. It is simply to wrap up this debate, but in so doing, sir, give to the country, through you, sir, the appropriate responses to some questions that were raised.
So if I'm hearing you correct, honorable member, you're just wrapping up your second reading, correct? And the amendment it has nothing to do with substantive amendments to the bill.
Mr. Speaker?
Continue, honorable member.
Thank you, sir. So let me start over again, sir. So,
Honorable the opposition?
Well, I am happy, Mr. Speaker, that finally the honorable member for Christchurch East Central seems to understand what you were trying to tell him that he should say. What I don't fully grasp or appreciate is the fact that I'm now understanding there are significant amendments to the bill. I would imagine, as the presiding officer in this House, you are aware of those proposed amendments. I understand the honorable member to be saying the amendments have been drafted, but here on this side, we have not even been given the courtesy of a sight of those amendments.
Mr. Speaker, I indicated last week very clearly, and I hope, sorry, can I?
Continue, honorable member.
I had indicated last week that when we came to the chamber then, that we would be doing some amendments in committee and that we were just seeking clarity from the CPC with respect to what those amendments would be. Now, just to be clear, sir, the settlement arrangements that we are putting in place, sir, because we recognize that not only has there been outstanding liabilities prior to 2018, sir, the recurrent circumstance with respect to the government in terms of being able to ensure that we can continue, sir, to finance the delivery of public goods and services, sir, requires that we do not in any way, sir, create issues with respect to the demands for cash flow, particularly, sir, in the midst of what we are having to respond to right now with respect to the pandemic, that with the surge in numbers, sir, we are seeing a demand for cash flow every day with respect to being able to respond to the pandemic. And therefore, in that context, sir, and because there is likely to be some level of uncertainty going forward with respect to where the economy may go, but particularly, sir, the demands with respect to cash as we see the economy recovering, that we want to ensure that we have a framework that allows us to settle with persons in a way that allows for the government, as well as those persons with whom the government will be settling, clarity with respect to being able to execute this framework. The amendments that I was, yes, I know, sorry. So just to be clear, the current bill, sir, speaks to land tax, land acquisition, sir, as well as legal claims against the Crown, sir, specifically, and certainly that that predated this government, and we intend to settle those. But we also equally recognize, sir, that as this very pandemic has unfolded, that we have had a situation where we now have, in the course of being able to deal with, one, sir, the recapitalization of the National Insurance Fund, given that the NIS, sir, had to, the unemployment fund last year, sir, had to borrow from the National Insurance Fund in order to be able to pay, sir, those unemployment claims that were quite unprecedented, sir, almost over 50,000 claims last year, sir. To be able to do that, that the Ministry of Finance and certainly the government is working through a specific program to allow the national insurance to be recapitalized. And it is our intention to ensure that as we do so, sir, that the pressure with respect to being able to do that does not in any way, sir, compromise the ability for government to finance its operations going forward. And I say so, sir, absolutely clear in my mind that to limit in the way that we had originally intended when we came to office to those issues that predated the BERT program, would at this time, in the midst of a pandemic, as we seek to continue to provide a number of added social protection measures to help people through this pandemic, that we have to find a mechanism, sir, to do the things that we have committed to doing to protect our people, but equally, sir, to avoid the government having to continue to provide large amounts of cash all at once, which puts pressure on the public finances. That this framework is the best framework we have available at this time to allow us to be able to execute that, sir. And it is in that context, sir, that the proposed amendments are intended, but it is the framework that is important, sir. It is the framework that is important because how Barbados is able, sir, to finance itself over the course of the next 3 years, sir, is going to be important. And this allows the government not only to address issues that have confronted us and still remain with us prior to the implementation of the BERT program, but as this pandemic has unfolded, we've had to respond, sir, very quickly to being able to deal with the emergencies that have confronted us, which required cash, sir. And therefore, as a responsible government, sir, we have to plan out the affairs as best we can, recognizing that circumstances, sir, have changed. But because the circumstances have changed, we have to not just respond to those circumstances, but we also give persons and entities with whom we have been engaged in good faith discussions, the comfort that the framework to pay them down, sir, is in place in order to allow us to be able to give everybody, sir, some relative certainty. The leader of the opposition, in his submission last week, sir, questioned, or asked, sorry, I should say, about the performance of the BOSS bonds. And the truth is, sir, as we have gone through, and I make this point again, sir, to reinforce that we have been contemplating, sir, when will be the right time, sir, for the government of Barbados to start to reissue securities in the market. And whilst we introduced the BOSS bonds last year, sir, as a mechanism to help us divert cash to enhance our capital work, sir, without changing the framework, we have actually indeed, sir, seen quite a bit of take-up of those bonds, sir, across a whole range of economic agents. I will refer, and I will go through it in a little detail, sir, which is something, sir, that we have to appreciate is still important, sir, as part of being able to deliver some level of rate of return in the context of what clearly is a very shallow financial and capital markets in Barbados. And oftentimes, sir, we have to come to the recognition, I think, that when we speak to confidence in the context of how bonds are traded, sir, oftentimes the reality is that it depends on the circumstances of the persons who are actually holding those said securities. And on the external side, sir, our bonds are still trading well above par, but because of circumstances within the context of the domestic space, sir, the bonds that we issued, sir, in particularly Series F and Series B, sir, are trading below par, simply because persons require, sir, a set of cash up front, and people are prepared only, sir, to offer at a discount in order to see that return down the road for the person who is prepared to pay. Now, this is how normally, sir, how capital markets work, and it is important to though recognize that with the introduction of the BOSS bonds, which offer a very attractive rate of return, sir, given that it is over 4 years, and the terms on the conditions of the bonds themselves do actually lead to persons displaying quite a bit of interest in it. Let me say, sir, that up until now, and I will give you the data up until the end of September, sir, of 2021, as I have it. Currently, sir, as you know, sir, bonds were issued to qualifying public servants and those persons who may have retired and opted in, sir, with respect to the program. And currently, sir, as I see here on my chart, just about 18 million, sir, of those bonds are still owned by government employees. 18 million, sir. For those persons who chose to sell their bonds, sir, I can say to you that just about 16 million, sir, are currently owned or bought, sir, by credit unions. Pensioners, sir, as in individual pensioners, just about 8 million of those bonds have been bought by pensioners, sir, off of public servants. Pension schemes, sir, about 8.2 million have been bought by pension schemes. So if you combine both pension schemes and pensioners, sir, you recognize that just about 16 million, north of 16 million of bonds were bought by the pension sector. The next largest component, sir, of ownership is about 6 million, sir, by individuals, persons who are not pensioners, just average Barbadians, sir, who bought just about 6 million of the bonds off of public servants, sir, between July 2020 and September 2021, sir. And thereafter, sir, companies and insurance companies, sir, just about 3 million, and regular companies, sir, and trust companies, 2 million each. So there's a wide, sir, set of ownership with respect to persons who have actually participated in the BOSS program, and the extent to which I see that, sir, as confidence in what government has put into the market. I see that, sir, as something that we can all be proud of, because at a time where we needed to be creative, sir, in order to help spur some capital works and finance some capital works, sir, in a modest way, I can say, sir, that Barbadians certainly have stepped up both institutionally, sir, as well as individuals, to be able to assist in participating in the BOSS program. And as I reflect on that, sir, as I reflect on that, and within the broader context of how and when government will dip its toe back into the capital, into the bond market, sir, with respect to the issuance of regular treasury bills, better savings bonds, or any other debentures that we did in the past. I really see this, sir, as a positive step to signal to us that we may be able to do so. Now, just bear in mind, sir, that the program, as we have envisaged, crafted initially, did not require financing of this type. But you would appreciate, sir, that having met our 6% primary target at the end of March 2020, COVID has hit. We have now arrived at a situation, sir, where not just with respect to the loss of revenue, but certainly the increase in expenditures to respond to the pandemic, both on the health side as well as on the social protection side, sir, has created a gap where that required financing. And we had to borrow from multilaterals. We had to borrow, sir, in this case, in the context, borrow from public servants and be able to facilitate through the BOSS program, the financing of some of our capital works programs, to be able to ensure that Barbadians every day, sir, can still avail themselves of all the services that government offers. We've had to deliver them slightly differently, sir, in the circumstances, and therefore I see this opportunity, sir, to allow us to keep the discipline with respect to the management of the public finances, sir, is important. To keep that discipline, to allow for us to finance the delivery of these public goods and these public services, sir, in a way that it is extraordinarily difficult. And I say to Barbadians and reiterate to Barbadians that as we go through these next few months, sir, that observing the public health protocols, getting vaccinated, sir, I can't say enough, will be a critical part of how we are able to ease some of the financing pressures of government. But easing those financial pressures of government would simply mean, sir, that there are more people employed, sir, across Barbados. And once there's more people employed, sir, it means that there will be spending to be associated with that. And with that additional spending and that additional activity, as we welcome back more and more visitors, sir, to our shores, and we are able to actually relax some of the directives, some of the public health directives, sir, to respond to the level of vaccination that we are seeing in the population, then I can say with confidence, sir, that I can see some easing with respect to the financing pressures, because it is real, sir. And let it not be misunderstood by anyone, sir, whether in this place or the other place or outside of Parliament, sir, that the government right now, sir, is working very, very hard to ensure that we can continue, sir, to provide the relevant public services as well as public goods, sir, to the citizens of Barbados. And I know that for some, there's a fixation with when certain events will take place, sir. But I want to remind the country and those members, sir, in this chamber and the other chamber, sir, that we have laid, sir, the fiscal framework in this house. I've laid, sir, the mid-year review. I will articulate, sir. I was hoping to do it today, but I suspect it will be next week, sir. I will do the statement with respect to what the mid-year review and the fiscal framework says, so that nobody can say, sir, that they did not know the true state of the Barbados economy, sir, because I know as we move ahead, there will be some who will feign ignorance with respect to where we are. And I say from this place, sir, through you, to all members, all those interested in entering this place at any point in the future, sir, to avail themselves, sir, of the fiscal framework as well as the mid-year review, and we will continue to be open and transparent with everybody in this country, sir, with respect to the management of the public finances, because it is important, sir, that we all be honest and be straight with the people, sir, with respect to expectations. And I can say to you that we have been working hard, sir, to provide the best possible set of services in very trying circumstances, sir. And therefore, this framework, as spec'd out here, is intended, sir, to give satisfaction to those persons who have been long denied settlement of their obligations from government. And I say to them, this is the best circumstance, this is the best framework in the circumstances that can ensure that persons be paid. However, we have to be upfront and recognize that that is being operated in the context of a wider in the wider management of the economy, and therefore we believe, sir, that this really is the way for those persons to have their claims settled, and settled with certainty, because it allows the government to be able to manage, sir, the cash flow as required. And I can only be open and straight and honest about the situation as I am, sir, because it should not be misunderstood in any way. It may look easy, sir, to some people, but it is not, with respect to being able to deal with a significant loss of revenue, increased expenditure, sir. But this government has been able to build confidence in our program that we have been delivering, and we will continue, sir, to deliver, not just on the reforms, but certainly, sir, improving the suite of services that the public can expect from government. And that, sir, is really where I think the overall focus in getting the economy to recover, and we want the recovery to be as inclusive as possible. Barbadians have a role, sir, to play with respect to that, and therefore, as all of us go about our business, I think people should take the opportunity to, if they are interested in understanding and knowing what is happening with your government, we have come to this place, sir, and we've given account each and every time with respect to these matters. And so financing, sir, financing is going to be the key. Is going to be the key. How it is financed? One, sir, by getting more economic activity going, which means once we hit certain thresholds, relaxation of some of the directives, sir, more activity taking place within the context of the local economy, more visitors coming back, sir, to spur additional activity in the economy, sir, and therefore we are balancing the reopening with respect to what we are doing in terms of on the public health as well as on the economic side. And Barbadians, sir, have a role to play in that. We want Barbadians to be able to look after themselves, because there will come a point, sir, and there will come a point where once we can get back to a situation where persons have been re-employed, and let me say, sir, that it must be made clear that with each week and each month, sir, and each quarter as we move forward, that you will obviously see more activity emerge. And therefore, the extent to which we hope that all Barbadians prior to March 2020 can get back to the same level of employment, sir, whether it's 5 days a week, whatever, the terms that they were working, sir, that we can get back there. That's not going to start immediately, but we can see that happening, sir, as we get more and more activity going. And whilst it will not immediately, sir, replace the loss of income clearly between that period of time, we have to work doubly hard, sir, to ensure that we can extract as much growth as well as much compensation, sir, for workers, because I accept, sir, that as we are talking about that households in this country, certainly over the last 18 months, sir, were and are and continue to be under strain because of the, whilst we speak of the drop in revenue for government, a number of households, sir, it was 100% loss of income. And therefore, the extent to which those households can recover means that obviously we need to get back to a level of employment within these households across the communities in Barbados, sir, such that the recovery, sir, can take root. And in the same way that we are dealing with this framework for us to be able to settle our obligations, sir, we are mindful that a similar arrangement may be in the offing with respect to what is happening with respect to households and by extension some businesses in the country. And so the prospects, sir, the prospects for Barbados look better for next year, but they can only come to realization, sir, fruition, if citizens participate and allow us to be able to get to that stage. And so, sir, this is the substance of the bill, is to allow the government to be able to settle these all obligations such that it does not create financing pressure and demands on the cash flow going forward. One last point, sir, on this, and I know it is in the report, and I will make reference to it again later. But the reality of our circumstance, sir, is such that you would recall that we were running those 6% surpluses, sir, to pay down debt and to pay down arrears, sir, for the most part, in order to reach the 6% to debt GDP ratio. Having moved from a 6% primary surplus to effectively, sir, we will be running a small deficit this year. Again, sir, what that means is that the trajectory, because we've had to incur debt rather than pay it down as we would like. And therefore, the space within the context of our debt ceiling, sir, because we've had to take on debt in the last 18 months that we did not anticipate taking on, means then that our debt to GDP ratio and the space with respect to that is actually getting particularly narrow. And therefore growth, sir, and I come back to how we are going to get out of this situation, growth and getting more economic activity, sir, in the short to medium term, sir, is going to be very, very, very critical. And that is why the government has been pushing so hard on its capital side to be able to accelerate. I hope, sir, that between now and the end of the hurricane season, and that certainly, sir, for the foreseeable future, that we won't have any further disruptions, but I can't guarantee that that will be the case, sir. And therefore, in that context, I say to Barbadians that the way that we finance these matters will pretty much determine, sir, what government is capable of delivering given the wider context of the economy. So I don't want it, sir, to be said or lost on anybody, sir, in or out of this place as to the situation that we are in. But we will get out of this situation. But we have to get out of it, sir, with discipline. We have to get out of it with a sense that we in Barbados, sir, can, in fact, get out of the situation, and that we will each play the role that we have to play, sir, in being able to get out of this circumstance. And so, sir, those are my very few remarks with respect to the nature of this bill. I want to thank honorable members for the contributions that they made, and to the extent that we are on track, because we continue to meet our internal targets, but we are very clear and conscious, sir, that getting people back to work, getting the economy restarted, jump-started, sir, is critical for us to be able to deal and settle, sir, with confidence these long-standing obligations for persons in this country. And so, sir, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time. I'm a blessed you.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a second time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of the House until 11:15.
The question is that this honorable chamber be suspended until 11:15 a.m. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands suspended until 11:15 a.m. This sitting is resumed. Honorable for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
This House is now in committee.
Clause 1. Clause 1.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that Clause 1 stand part.
Question is that Clause 1 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that Clause 2 stand part.
Question is that Clause 2 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
Madam Chair, I wish to amend clauses 3A to delete before 30th of September 2018, clause A. 3B to delete clause 3B to delete before 30th September 2018. Clause 3C to delete before 30th September 2018, and to insert a new clause D, which is outstanding liabilities of any kind of the government. So with that, I beg to move that clause 3 be stand part as amended.
Question is that Clause 3 stand part with amendments. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Just for clarity, the clause 3C, we will delete before 30th September 2018 and add the column and then put and at the end in order to move to the new clause D. So I beg to move that clause 3 stand part as amended.
Question is that Clause 3 stand part as amended. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clause 4 stand part.
Question is that Clause 4 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 5.
Madam Chair, I beg to make some amendments to clause 5. At the end of the first sentence, delete the word to. So the bonds created under section 4 shall be issued to. Delete the word to. And to add to clause A, to a person, and to delete before 30th September 2018 in clause 5A. For clause 5B, to insert the word to before a person whose cause or claim, and to delete before 30th September 2018 from that sentence at B. And for 3C, to delete that clause and replace it with any respect of any outstanding liabilities of any kind of the government. So, Madam Chair, I beg to move that clause 5 stand part as amended.
Question is that Clause 5 stand part with amendments. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 6.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clause 6 stand part.
Question is that Clause 6 stands part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Schedule.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that the schedule be the schedule to the bill.
Question is that the schedule be the schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Report.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee with amendments.
Question is that I do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee with amendments. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman of committees is reporting the passing of one bill with amendments in committee. Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
Question that the aforementioned bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the debt, with amendment, as the Debt Settlement Arrears Act 2021.
The question is that this bill be passed and so cited. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited.
Mr. Speaker, recommittal of government notices. Madam Leader. Notice of regulation.
Honorable Leader, Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of a resolution to grant the sum of $95,966,535 from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2021 to 2022 as shown in the supplementary estimates number 4, 2021-2022.
Refer to government business.
Government Business.
Order number 12. In the name of the Honorable Leader of the House, to move that the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee to consider the grant of sums of money for the service of this item.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and that the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
This House is now in Standing Finance Committee. Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Sorry. Madam Chair, thank you very much.
Madam Chair, in the name of the Honorable Minister of Finance in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, to move the passing of a resolution to grant the sum of $95,966,535 from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2021 to 2022 as shown in the supplementary estimates number 4, 2021 to 2022, which form the schedule to the resolution. Head 12, Parliament, in the amount of $2.8 million.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As you are and the country are aware, ma'am, the Parliament has been undergoing significant renovations, and these sums of monies are to ensure then that we are able to complete said renovations to the East Wing, and to respond to remediate, I should say, sir, ma'am, to some of the structural issues that were discovered with respect to the replacement of some of the activities there, the infrastructure there. This process, as we continue to try to execute government's capital works program, these monies will allow for the completion of the restoration of the East Wing. And I do believe that as part of how we are able to not just restore the Parliament and to go back into an environment that I hope, ma'am, would be of better quality than was the case before, that we're able to remediate some of the issues there. But more importantly, as we have in this chamber have transitioned certainly to Republican status, I think it's important that we recognize that whilst we have a long history with the Parliament at its original site, that it really is incumbent upon us to ensure that the maintenance of not just Parliament, but certainly the context of our overall public buildings and public spaces, that we make the appropriate resources available to ensure that we can respond quickly to these matters. And so these monies will be able to remediate some of the issues there, but I speak more broadly, Madam Chair, with respect to not just government's capital works program, but being able to ensure that we can, across the board, with respect to maintenance, whether it is schools, polytechnics, or any other government institution, that going forward, we obviously have to ensure that we have proper maintenance plans to be able to respond to these things in a timely fashion. And so, Madam Chair, with those very, 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 very few words, I beg to move that Head 12 stand part.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly to raise some matters which I think are pertinent to this particular debate and the vote of these sums of money for continuing works at the Parliament building in town. Now, as far as I'm aware, there is a management commission of Parliament. The concern is the length of time between meetings of the management commission of Parliament. We are being asked to support this vote for these funds, and I think the requests of members to address this matter came by what is commonly called round robin. The actual management commission has not met, as far as I can recall, for a very extended period. It could be a year, I might be mistaken, I could be corrected, but an absolutely long time. I see this as a very important functional unit of the architecture of this Parliament. For the management commission not to be meeting with greater frequency, even if meetings are conducted in a virtual setting, is a shortcoming. I know that members are quite busy with their respective portfolios and so forth, but of course the management commission is the unit charged with responsibility for overseeing the affairs of the Parliament. You've got a major building project going on downtown. Sums have been voted by the Parliament. I think we have advanced supplemental funds towards those works. This is not the first time, I don't think, that the Management Commission is not meeting. There are, beyond that building project, other matters which certainly I consider to be of some significance that I personally would like to see addressed. The Office of the Opposition made requests of the Management Commission of Parliament formally that the matter of a research officer for the Office of the Opposition be seriously addressed and provided for. my understanding is that the previous leader of opposition of the parliament made a similar request that she then be provided with a research officer to be attached to the office of the opposition to help with what she then considered to be the very important work of the opposition. I'd like to think that that work is still as important, equally important, perhaps more so important in a context where there's only 3 persons constituting the parliamentary opposition and only 1 in the lower house. But after over a year, we have not had that matter addressed. Means, Mr. Speaker, that the leader of the opposition is left to do all of the necessary research himself. And it means, especially in a context where late information comes as to what Parliament is likely to be looking at, having to vote monies for, then, you know, Madam Chair, I would have thought that honorable members on the other side would have learned that when I am in a very gentle, cordial frame of mind, to leave me be and not to stir me towards wrath, because a few of them have suffered as a result of that, and as recently as today. And they really by now, because of their long experience in this place, especially with reference to the member for Christchurch West, whose stay here is to be soon abbreviated, I understand. It would really do them well to leave me be. I'm simply saying that the former leader of the opposition asked for a research officer, and that what we are hearing from the, as an aside, from the honorable member for Christchurch West underscores the importance and significance of what I'm saying. Because the leader of the opposition then was supported by contributions in terms of human resource assistance from a mass-based party established over 7.5 decades and more, and was able to rely on party funding, able to rely on party financing from the state purse through this parliament to support payment for persons associated with that party to assist in the official duties of the opposition. This honorable member is not so privileged, has not been so blessed, and so he stands without that broad mass-based, long-established, 7.5 decades old party organization behind him and party financing, and therefore you're left, Madam Chair, to do so what is a simple and understandable request, of which I remind this House becomes a matter for provocation insofar as members on the other side are concerned. And that is not in the interest of a democracy, Madam Chair. So we asked for a research officer. We've had no positive response on that. And I'm simply saying we are not the first to recognize that need. And others filling this position, better blessed than we are in several other ways, asked similarly to be resourced with such a person. But the Management Commission of Parliament has not acted on that positively and is not meeting to take decisive action on those matters. And you know, Mr. Speaker, I don't talk a lot about these things. And when I'm gone from the office of the Leader of the Opposition, maybe I will speak more with respect to that, because we pay lip service to this office, which under the Constitution is an important unit of our political and democratic and parliamentary architecture. Do you know how the office of the opposition is staffed beyond myself, Madam Chair? There's a secretary who does typing and filing and correspondence. There's a personal assistant, which every minister of this government has, and Prime Minister herself is blessed with several personal assistants. We have one. Beyond that, Madam Chair, we have a maid, and beyond that, we have a driver messenger. That's what the leader of the opposition in the Parliament of Barbados and in the governance structure in Barbados has at his disposal to stand up against 28 over there. And there are some on that side who think that this is a trivial issue. I don't talk a lot about it because I believe the Lord I serve will give me strength to answer any cause and make any charge that I need to make in the interest of the people of Barbados. So I'll face them down with whatever limited resources I have. But it cannot be that we allow it to persist, a situation where that obtains. You have a driver messenger, Madam Chair. He is not provided with any allowance for traveling, for use of his vehicle. He is not given a vehicle or let to use a vehicle belonging to the state. Nothing like that. He must use his own vehicle, or he must use mine, which is way past its best use date. And this is what we are facing in Barbados, in the Parliament of Barbados, in 2021. Now, I really didn't want to plan to go into all these issues, but all the members on the other side seem restless, and therefore I must put them to better settlement in their positions, get them quiet. Issue of security, Madam Chair. The issue of security, Madam Chair. There's security in this building provided by the owners and operators of the building, and with reference generally to persons who use this building. There's also security. It is not the type of security, Madam Chair, that you see when Parliament is in session here, or when parliamentary committees are meeting. In other words, when ministers of the state are on this compound, we see uniform security here provided by the Barbados Police Force. We see 1 or 2 security guards provided by government security. But outside of that, there's a general lack of security around this place. Let me tell you something that troubles me greatly. It doesn't trouble me personally, because I'm prepared to face the worst, if Lord allows that. But if I were to be here, Madam Chair, and I leave this building after the administrative security, if I may call it that, the security provided for the building by the operators of this building, and I happen to leave here after hours and they're not there, the gate is closed. I can't get out through that front gate. I come here on the weekend, I can't get in through that front gate. If I leave here after a certain hour in the evening, Madam Chair, I have to go through the back of this property. Have you ever gone through the back of this property, Madam Chair? It was always dangerous. It is now even more so dangerous. There's a large and very high overgrowth extending even to the pathway for you. You cannot now drive there without the overgrowth touching your vehicle. Mr. Speaker, 10 men can stand in that overgrowth and not be seen by you. Although you look with fixed gaze for them, you still will not see them. That is the type of nonsense that obtains around here. I don't talk about those things. Now, there may be others who come to this place and who have to make a similar exit. I have seen parliamentary staff, and some of them female, working here over hours, who have to make that type of exit. That is not good. That is not proper. It is not right in 2021. I remember distinctly once, I was making my way out through the back there, Madam Chair, and I had to come to the rescue of a young female who had nothing to do with the operations of this parliament. She was just making her transit through here, coming from the commercial side on the other side to get onto this highway in the front. She came through the back, as many do at any hour of the day. As many do. You don't know who they are. You have to pass by them. And she felt threatened by one man who seemed to be following her. I had to come to her rescue, and he walked away, and it seemed to me he was bent on mischief. Now, that is a type of thing that can happen. Now, she's not a member of the parliamentary staff. She's not in any way associated with the operation of this parliament. Just perhaps an honest citizen making her way through there. But she felt threatened, and the threat seemed to be real. But that is a type of risk to which you expose yourself here. Nobody says anything. A simple thing like giving access to the place or the privilege of egress from the place through the front of the place. Nothing like that. Not as simple a courtesy as that. Now, I'm not going to stand here and vote for the and vote against the millions that are required to finish the work downtown. I'm going to take the opportunity to say these things because members on the other side think that this thing is a joke. But this is not a joke. Let me speak quietly and cordially of one or two things in relation to the bill and not stir me to this type of thing, because that is a nonsense. I could go to the media every single time you people get it wrong. I could have gone to the media this morning about this nonsense that went down here in front of us. I'm not disposed to that. I'm here doing serious business in the interest of the people. So don't sit over there and tell me nonsense. You would get me riled. Now, I'm sure, Madam Chair, there must be staff matters. I do not know how staff matters are dealt with by the management of Parliament. But if you have such an important organization, such a large number of people, there must be staff matters that surely should be looked at very closely. And some of them would be of such significance and urgency that it must have come to the Management Commission of Parliament. But if the Management Commission of Parliament is not meeting, how are staff matters of a significantly serious matter to which urgency attached, how are these things being addressed? We are dealing with people, and we're dealing with the people's business. And this is not just some institutional charade we go through by a government that continues to think it is the best thing since sliced bread. These are serious matters that we are dealing with here. Madam Chair, there was a man out there, and it was his right so to do, and he felt the need to take to the courts of Barbados the matter of my appointment as leader of the opposition by Her Excellency the Governor General of Barbados under the constitutional stipulations. It was his right to challenge, and he challenged. And because of the nature of things, the Office of the Attorney General, through the Department of the Solicitor General's Office, must defend the interests of the Crown, and in this case, the decision and action of Her Excellency in the courts of Barbados. But if you're challenging the position of the leader of the opposition, I would think, and I was advised to this effect, that the leader of the opposition, the office of the opposition, should engage legal counsel to represent the interests of that office and the interests of the leader. And so I did. I am of the view, further, Madam Chair, that the charges attaching to the retention of such legal representation by the office of the opposition, the leader of the opposition, should be looked after by the Parliament of Barbados. Now, tell me in the world, how is that a wrong position to assume? Now, these are things that the Management Commission of this Parliament must look at. I raised this matter before the hearing started, having been advised by some legal luminaries, the right thing to do. The Office of the Attorney General will make a defense in this case. But it is in the interest of the office and the leader of the opposition to retain counsel for himself and for that office. And I've pursued that advice. I raised this with the Management Commission. The response was not favorable at the time. I let it lie in abeyance for a while until the actual things worked out. That has now been settled. That case has gone to the court, and the decision was made against the gentleman who brought the case. I'm saying that the office of the opposition should be financially supported in the payment of the cost of retaining legal fees in that particular situation. These are matters that the Management Commission of Parliament must deal with. Now, we need to know really when the work at Bridgetown is likely to be completed. And we have had some deadlines suggested with reference to that. I believe it's in the interest of the Parliament to return to those hallowed precincts as soon as possible. We need to have a better guideline. I know when you start work, sometimes you come across this, you come across that. You didn't anticipate it takes longer. But we need better information as to what's happening there. Are any contracts being extended or expanded? Now, I don't think that those things can happen in the absence of decisions from the Management Commission, but are they happening? How is labor being recruited? I have had people, I have gone there to park since the works have been going on. I have had people who are engaged as workers on the project complain to me that they were not being paid. Now, and I have also recognized some people working on the job there, and I happen to know their geography in terms of where to live. And I have not seen anybody coming out of the West. They come from Central and other areas. And I just wonder how is labor being recruited, and how are contracts being managed? Are they being expanded or extended in the circumstance? If that's the case, I wouldn't think that would happen in the absence of the knowledge of the management committee. But in the case, we need to be told those things. I am not here to cause trouble. I'm simply here to speak to realities that I think are pertinent. But when those on the other side who are scoffers and naysayers, honorable though they be, seek to make mischief of these moments, the Lord has given to me the skill to deal with them, and I simply seek humbly so to do. Ma'am, I thank you.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Let me take the opportunity to bring this debate back to the substance of the matter and not wax wide and varied on the Management Commission of Parliament and security of this building and all these kinds of things. Let me come straight to the meat of the matter, which is the renovations of the East Wing of Parliament. And first, let me say that it has been an absolute honor and a privilege for me to be associated with the renovations of the East Wing of Parliament. In fact, it took me back to when I was a relatively new member of Parliament and speaking to the clerk one day at the former Members' Lounge, and I told him, we could renovate this Members' Lounge. We could put in a mezzanine floor and change it out and put more desks and so on, because at that time people didn't have the internet on their phones. We all used to be waiting for the chance to get onto the computer and all this kind of thing. And I shared my ideas with the Clerk of Parliament. We went through, did the designs, and over time, then with the MTW, they actually did the renovation. And I was very, very, very proud to have been associated with just that small part of Parliament in renovating the Members' Lounge. So you can imagine how much better I would feel to know that we are renovating and making better and a safer whole Parliament building. In fact, Madam Chair, you would know, because you were one of the people that instigated the problems and the environmental issues that we were experiencing there. Not only in terms of rising mold, because of, as you know, what happens is the soft stones, how buildings were designed in the past, with soft stone buildings, they were what we call naturally ventilated, which meant that as the air passed through, any moisture that the stones would pull up by osmosis or by the simple abstraction of the moisture was dried very, very quickly, and you would not get mold and so on, because all of them were naturally ventilated with windows and so on. Over time, the people have decided that we will close up buildings and put in air condition, plaster walls which stop the normal ventilation, and we have big problems with mold, and we had a problem with mold at the Parliament. So we've had to deconstruct and reconstruct how Parliament is designed in terms of how it's naturally ventilated underneath from the floor. So we had to take up the floor and put in better ventilation. We've taken up the carpet, and we're changing from carpet because, as you know, carpet holds dust and mold. And then we found lots of fiberglass and so on in the roof, and we had to go and deal with that as well. And then on top of that, we had an air condition problem. The air conditioner, I understand, was there from the 1970s or late 60s, early 70s, and had not been changed. And which reminds me, it was an air conditioner, I think it weighed about 4 tons. We've had to buy a new air conditioner weighing, I understand, 7 tons. So what does that mean? That means the air condition on the roof was assessed as whether it could take a larger size air condition. And we found we have to re-engineer the roof, as well as all the other works that we were doing, make the bathrooms better, make the kitchen better, and change out the cupboards, do all of the workspace, make the stairwell better and improved. So when we get back to Parliament, it will be a facility fit-in of the important work that this country does on a daily basis, and this Parliament does for the people of Barbados. And it will be a building that we can all be justly proud. A better bathroom facility, a better kitchen facility, so that there is a better environment, not only for us to work in, but also for the people that work there on a daily basis. And more importantly, healthier. So we have a lot of work all the time. Yes, are we getting what we call scope creep, which means that as you set out the work, more work comes on? Yes, we're getting scope creep. But we have to do it, because do we just put a plaster on, or do we fix it properly now and don't have to look at it for another 30 or 40 years? That's what we're trying to do. So we want to fix it appropriately and to the best of our ability at the current time, so that we don't have to look back at it for years to come. And let's make no bones about it, Madam Chair. It is harder to renovate an old building, especially of that age, than to build a new building, because there's so much more parameters, so much more restrictions in terms of the size of the walls, what it can bear, what it can't bear. Putting in the new infrastructure, putting in the new electronics in an old building. It's difficult. It is difficult, but we are up to the task. And let me say, the buildings unit is making a tremendous effort, and we're trying our best to finish at the end of January. So I know everybody wants to hear a date. I know many times people hold you to that date, and we're trying, and we're putting whatever resources. We're working day and night. Even during COVID, we applied for permission and was granted permission by the Attorney General through the COVID measures, through work day and night, doing as much as we can at night, and we're leaving the heavy work to the day. So a lot of work is going on there. A lot is coming to the end, and then we're finding new things. Even for the air conditioning, we're having to change from a 7-inch concrete roof to a 14-inch concrete roof. So that 7 more inches of concrete have to go on there so that it can facilitate the weight of the new air conditioning system. So lots has been happening, but I am working every day to make sure that we get to that January, end of January deadline. If before, even better, so that we can get back to where we ought to be in the Parliament of Barbados, in those historic buildings. So I would ask, Madam Chair, that that we get the support of the Honourable House for this to pass.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Yes, Madam Chair, let me thank the honourable members for their contributions. Execution is the order of the day with respect to the government, and I look forward to are able to return to Parliament at the soonest opportunity. Madam Chair, I beg to move that head 12, stand par.
Question is that head 12 stand par. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 13, Prime Minister's Office, in the amount of $1,735,000.
Honourable member for the city.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I speak on this head as a member of the Defence Board, and in the absence of the Honourable Prime Minister, because this head has to do with the provision of additional funding under sub-program 0043 of the Barbados Defence Force. And I speak in recognition of the substantial role that is being played by the Barbados Defence Force in assisting the Ministry of Health and Wellness in the execution of the COVID-19 response. And this role started from the beginning of the pandemic and continues today, to the extent that the force has been providing anywhere around 70 persons on a daily basis to be able to assist in almost every aspect of the COVID fight, from the points of entry, airport, seaport, to swabbing, to transportation of COVID positive persons, the driving of ambulances as well to be able to do that, to the provision of meals and supplies to persons in isolation, especially home isolation, and also to the general support of the ministry and the Emergency Operations Center that is responsible for the conduct of these operations. And the Defense Force has been doing that, even though the numbers in the force have been considerably lower than the establishment. In fact, they've been struggling to a large extent. And in order to be able to address this issue, a recruiting program was started, and I know there's a plan to do another set of recruiting to be able to build back the numbers. And so these funds, in this 1.7 million for the most part, these funds are being allocated to the payment of those persons since the new recruits, since the force would have expended a lot of its funds in relation to the support that they are providing to the Barbados COVID-19 response. And this is particularly important that we give the force this support at this point in time. But I also want to add that this is only a part of what the force was actually requesting to be able to get things back on even keel, because over the last several years, the force would have suffered significantly in relation to its infrastructure, with several barracks unusable at this point in time, which places a lot of strain on the ability of the force to respond, because naturally soldiers are housed in barracks so that we can utilize their services when we have an emergency. And there are some other issues in relation to some of the critical infrastructure which we would have inherited as a government and which we are trying to deal with at this point in time. So that these funds that we are seeking in this supplementary, I guess will be, I'm hoping will be the catalyst of some other things to come to be able to assist the Barbados Defense Force so that the force in turn can provide a better quality of service and sustainable service to the government of Barbados, and especially at this time to the Ministry of Health and Wellness in the fight against COVID. So I just wanted to give that explanation as to why these funds are being requested in this supplementary, and I would like to get the concurrence of the remainder of the chamber to be able to support the supplementary. I also take this time on behalf of the board and speaking on behalf of the government in this regard to congratulate the new Chief of Staff, Commodore Sherlin, on his elevation to the office of Chief of Staff. And to wish him all the best during his tenure as Chief of Staff in the rebuilding effort that is on the way to get the Defense Force where we want it to be. And finally, on behalf of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, to really thank the BDF for the outstanding support, the level of commitment and dedication, and everything else that they have been able to provide to the Ministry of Health and Wellness as we continue to fight the COVID battle. Without the Defense Force, we could not have achieved what we've been able to achieve thus far. And with those few words, I am obliged.
Okay. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, ma'am. Just simply to
You can do it at the end, though.
My apologies, Madam Chair. With those few remarks, I beg to move that Head 13 stand par.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just simply to add my voice to that of the Honorable Minister who just spoke, in congratulating the new Chief of Staff of the Barbados Defense Force. The Defense Force, of course, is an entity that has served this country well traditionally in difficult and challenging times, they've supplemented the law and order purpose of the Barbados Police Force. With respect, especially through the COVID season, if we may call it that, those efforts have been redoubled, enhancing what the government has tried to do to help us to manage that situation and to address the needs of the Barbadian public by dint of the hard and disciplined efforts of the Coast Guard. The Defense Force has also continued to contribute to ensuring that our developmental gains over time are not threatened and challenged, and successfully so. And I compliment them for that work, especially as we go forward. We are underscoring the importance of our marine environment to the economy, and therefore any threat or challenge to be faced on that score is to be responded to effectively and properly, and we have confidence in the Barbados Defense Force to do such. So I just want to add my voice in congratulations to the new Chief of Staff.
Honorable member for the city.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank the Honorable Leader of the Opposition for his support in this matter, and I beg to move that Head 13 be read the third time. The stand part, I'm sorry.
Question is that Head 13 stand par. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 30, Office of the Attorney General, in the amount of $3,937,555.
Honorable member for St. Joseph.
Madam Chair, the amounts that we are seeking as a supplementary cover a few areas. I'd like in particular to point out, Madam Chair, the amount that is due in respect of the Forensic Services Laboratory, and to outline very succinctly for this chamber the circumstances which require this particular financial injection. The Forensic Services Laboratory was conceived of as a cutting-edge laboratory for Barbados to aid in particular the investigation and the analysis of crimes, or I should say the investigation of crimes through the analysis of various samples, and further to also be able to do DNA testing. Colleagues might be aware that just a decade, well, 20 years ago, Barbadians who needed to have paternity tests done used to have to send those tests overseas at a cost of several $1,000s and much delay and so on. The time had clearly come for us to have a proper forensics sciences laboratory. The work on it was started by the then Attorney General, the Honorable David Simmons, and completed by the now Prime Minister when she served as Attorney General. I had the privilege of opening the facility when I became Attorney General. We had great dreams for this facility. In fact, it was supposed to be a drug testing laboratory during Cricket World Cup. And then once we had reached that particular level of accreditation, it would have continued to do drug testing across the hemisphere for various sporting events. That was not to be. We left government in 2008, and over the following decade, the laboratory fell into a state of, I want to use a polite word, let's just say that it gradually ceased to be used at maximum capacity, to the point where when we came back to government in 2009, 18, we found the Forensic Services Laboratory that could barely function. Significant environmental issues, and Madam Chair, as a medical doctor and therefore a person who understands the importance of environmental conditions to testings and samples and so on, you would appreciate that where you have environmental challenges in the laboratory, that delicately calibrated equipment would not be able to function at its capacity. And eventually, we had to take a very harsh decision that we either got the laboratory back up and running or we close it. The decision was taken that we needed to get the laboratory back up and running, and we've therefore spent a significant amount of money over the last 2.5 years to try to get it where we needed it to be. COVID intervened, of course, and caused a lot of construction work to come to a halt, but we managed to get through that. And we are now at the point where the renovations and refurbishments have been completed. We had to change the roof. The roof was leaking. All these kinds of issues. And we are now at the point where we have just a few more things to do before we resubmit the equipment to be recalibrated and so on. We continue to have to send toxicology samples overseas to be tested at significant costs. We continue to have to send DNA samples to be tested at significant costs. We've had to engage in a relationship with a laboratory in the US. We sometimes have to pray and aid the services and assistance of the US Embassy and the FBI in order to be able to get this important work done in our investigations. And it holds up police investigations. And that, of course, then has a ripple effect, because when the police investigations are held up, our ability to complete an investigation and hopefully to capture the perpetrator and then to lead to a prosecution, all of that, Madam Chair, then takes much longer than it should. This $633,000, therefore, is vitally needed. I hope that before the end of the financial year, we'll be in a position to herald the return of this Forensic Sciences Laboratory among the pantheon of government laboratories in Barbados. Their work is sorely needed, and I look forward to welcoming them back into the fold, providing these services for us. We've had to even send samples to neighboring Trinidad. The other matter that I would want to refer to briefly is the matter of professional services for the Parliamentary Council chamber. Now, Madam Chair, we have had, and in fact not just Barbados, across the Commonwealth, there is a dearth of legal draftsmen. We used to have a master's program at K-Ville, LLB, LLM in legal drafting, but unfortunately the thing about an LLM in legal drafting is that it just provides you with the basic skills. Dare I say, Madam Chair, it's almost like surgery. You can go to medical school and learn how to do surgery, but it is in the practicing of surgeries that you actually develop the skill and the facility that you need. We have a tremendous shortage all across the Commonwealth of legal draftsmen. Barbados has had the good fortune of having had a number of legal draftsmen, though from generations gone, who went on to serve us on the bench and so on. The need for drafting services has been so acute that we've not been able to rely solely on the Chief Parliamentary Council's chamber in order to meet our urgent needs. So we've had to contract out drafting services to individuals in the private sector who are able to provide those services for us to the skill level that we need. A lot of the stuff that we have to do through no fault of our own is extraordinarily urgent. and some of it is also extraordinarily complex, and we've therefore had to bring in professional services. And while I'm on the point, let me say that this administration has been forced to rely on members of the private bar to assist us in some of our litigation. That is nothing new. But I noticed that some commentators seem to feel that we are perpetrating some hideous act by getting lawyers from outside to assist us in our work. Let me explain, Madam Chair. The Solicitor General's office, as large as you might think it is, it in fact is quite small. There are law firms in Barbados that are bigger than the staff I have in the Solicitor General's chambers. That staff is divided into advisory, it is divided into contracts, it is divided into litigation. So there are only about 6 lawyers in the SG's chambers who are actually involved in litigation. And believe me, there are thousands of pending cases going back, in many instances, decades. When the need arises, as every administration has done, I have taken the decision to engage the finest legal services that are available at the private bar. And that has yielded significant results and benefits to the government. But more importantly, let me say that the days are long past when we get invoices from lawyers for $1.5 million, invoices from lawyers for $5 million, and that kind of thing. Every single engagement is covered by an engagement letter, which sets out the precise terms under which they will work, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. Something that you can't find anywhere on any of the AG's files for the 10 years before we came into government. Their hourly rates are fixed, and they're required to send in invoices every month. So every 30 days, if you've worked in that month, you send in your invoice. That keeps us within the IMF dictates, but it also allows us to be able to plan our expenditure. It also allows me to be able to keep a close track on how much money is being incurred in professional fees and to have a good idea as to whether they're legitimate or not. And we are therefore managing those expenses in a way that has never happened before. And I'm very proud to say that we're getting the finest professional service that we can buy, and we're getting the results, and we're getting it at far, far, far cheaper than the last administration did. The final thing I'd like to mention is in relation to the to assets under construction. This is perhaps the smallest element, but I think it's important to mention it briefly. Members of the public and members of this chamber would be aware that for many years, the building at Glenderry, the old prison, their yard has been used as the place where exhibits are stored, large exhibits, cars, boats, things of that sort. Unfortunately, the site is not protected, and unfortunately, the site is not secure. And there are individuals whose cars have been held in there, and when they go back to look at them during the course of a criminal trial, all that's left is a shell. Engine gone, wheels gone, bonnet gone, windscreen gone. If the government had to compensate the individuals for the loss, we would be looking at vast amounts of money. It is in a Zone 1, and there are environmental concerns in relation to oils and other things that will leak from vehicles. And then, of course, perhaps the most important thing is that it is now seen as a heritage tourism site, and therefore it has been taken over by the BTII and is no longer available for us to store our exhibits. We therefore need to build a modern impound yard for the Royal Barbados Police Force, a modern impound facility which will see us being able to carefully and in a secure way store exhibits, cut down on the level of deterioration, cut down on the level of theft and pilferage from those exhibits. And this impound facility would also include a warehouse type building where we can store other kinds of exhibits that require special arrangements. You might think of firearms and so on, things that are normally stored at police stations. If we can move many of our exhibits away from police stations, then of course it allows our police stations and our facilities there to be better utilized. Therefore, I ask Parliament to support this supplementary in the amount of $3.937,550,000, and I beg to move that this head stamp part.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Yeah, Madam Chair, well, I suppose just as I suppose express word of congratulations to the newly appointed Chief of Staff at the Defense Force, I probably should and would wish to do so with reference to the new Commissioner of Police. I think Barbados is privileged that in 2021 we have a number of people who can offer themselves to fill this position at this very challenging time. And one has been chosen by the Protective Services that brings a requisite level of experience and exposure to things relative to administration as well as formal policing through training and experience over decades. Brings that to the task, and that is to be a positive of which the country should be pleased and proud. And those others who may have had an interest need, I suppose, not to feel disrespected at final choices in that particular context. I would want to urge that the country seeks as quickly as possible, as far as possible, practicable, to move away from any interference with policing in Barbados, especially from the political process. This is a very challenging time for the country. Crime is manifesting itself in new ways, some of them violent, some of them regionally and transnationally organized. We need to be at our best. We need to deal with the internal dynamics of conflict within the force to the extent that we can. I wish the new commissioner well with respect to that. And we need to insulate as far as possible the force from the impact of negative external stimuli. I've said publicly, I would want to put on record here again, I urge the new commissioner to do his best to make sure he pushes as a matter of priority, one of his priorities, for a better deal for our police force. And that has to do with a better system of recruitment, that has to do with better pay levels, that has to do better infrastructural facilities and working environment. And Barbados is to go forward with the level of law and order and the sense of discipline in society as we would wish, and to ensure that the gains we make as we do so remain and are even expanded. We need the best effort that the Barbados Police Force can bring to the table, and I would want to wish him well and to wish the force well with those few words.
Thank you. Honorable Member for St. Joseph.
Madam Chair, I beg to move this head stand part.
Question is that head 30 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 31, ma'am. Ministry of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology in the amount of $1,076,880.
Honorable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The sums of money being requested under this specific vote relates to the part of the efforts to modernize Bridgetown and its environs, and to bring to the city and the residents, and as well as those who visit the city, to improve the technology platform across the city to create what may become known as Smart Bridgetown. This particular project to build out this infrastructure, Madam Chair, has been ongoing for a couple of years now. and the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology is now in a position to be able to execute this project, and therefore part of the funds here, which the project will be paid for and financed by government over 3 fiscal years, and this is the first part of the monies to be able to deal with the project. But really, it is to ensure that Barbados, as you well know, Madam Chair, is and Bridgetown, we should say, sorry, Bridgetown, and its garrison is part of the UNESCO World Heritage site. The technological platform to create the smart city in the future will allow for businesses, residents, visitors, and the like to be able to up the game, so to speak, Madam Chair, in the context of being able to not just do commerce, but to provide information on a range of attractions within the context of Bridgetown. And therefore, the project the money is being requested is to appoint a project manager, as well as to start to build up the foundation with respect to the deployment of the technology to be able to start to allow for some of our young creatives to start to build out and build on top of that platform for a lot of the product offerings that we know that we can help facilitate in the context not just of the World Heritage designation, but actively to be able to create opportunities for young people, middle-aged people, those persons who are involved in technology, and to bring greater prominence to their goods and services, to be able to utilize the facilities within the context of the city to do so. One of the defining features will be that the provision of Wi-Fi across the city will be one of the key outputs with respect to this project, and we are happy that in spite of what is clearly a very challenging environment to respond with respect to COVID, that we have to continue to provide opportunities for the country to continue its development, and we see this project as one of the critical pieces of the puzzle to enable our citizens and certainly our young entrepreneurs to be able to get a leg up in terms of being able to compete globally and to use that infrastructure. So I want to encourage all of our creators, all of our young people, all of our musicians, our artists, and the like, to find out how they can use and utilize the facilities that will be created to be able to get that global push as we seek to get more, not just tourists, but certainly more traffic through the city, which means Barbadians, visitors alike, to bring back greater activity and nightlife certainly to the city. We believe that this will be one of the key interventions that can see Barbados Bridgetown starting to be rejuvenated in the way that we would like it to be. And so with these interventions, coupled with some of the other work that is being done in and around the city with respect to improvements in infrastructure and development, I know that this will create the impetus for a lot more activity to take place within the capital city and the environs, and I believe that residents will be once the project is completed, those who live in the city will have better access to telecommunications and internet services, but I hope not just to consume social media and the like, which is fine for those who wish, but we really want to encourage, Madam Chair, not just young people, but certainly those in the city, to try to ensure that we can build on the platform to be able to enfranchise as many of those persons as possible and bring their talent and any of the creations that they have, not just to persons that will visit Bridgetown, but certainly use it as a conduit to get out into the world and the rest of the diaspora. So, Madam Chair, this is a very exciting project which I believe will transform Bridgetown. It will help to transform Barbados, and I believe that as we emerge from the pandemic, that is execution, Madam Chair, that we will, I'm hopeful that we should be able at some point in the future to be able to replicate what potentially is envisaged to take place in Bridgetown, that we should be able to do so across some aspects of the rest of the island to assure connectivity. And so, Madam Chair, I beg to move that Head 31 stand part.
Question is that Head 31 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 33, Ministry of Home Affairs, Information and Public Affairs, in the amount of $2,406,831.
Honourable member for Christchurch East.
Madam Chair, I have a very great pleasure in actually speaking today, because this is not just a supplementary for us to patch a hole in our budget, but this is a chance for us in the Ministry of Home Affairs, Information and Public Affairs, to make a lot of wrong things right. The totality of my supplementary, Madam Chair, is broken down into two parts. One concerns the prison, and the next one concerns the government industrial school. I'll just deal with the prison first. It is, everybody in Barbados knows, Madam Chair, that in December 31st last year, the prison discovered that COVID had entered the prison. The prison being what it is, which is a closed community, and persons who are necessarily living in close quarters to each other, it creates a unique problem when COVID got into the prison. We tried very hard to keep it out. We made arrangements because we knew at some point in time, Madam Chair, either somebody coming in through the penal system or somebody who works there would eventually get into the prison system and the prison population. So we were not, I guess, necessarily caught by surprise, but we tried to hold it off as long as possible. But on December 31st, 2020, we got some bad news that COVID was in the prison. A lot of things then kicked in, Madam Chair, because security in prison is paramount. It's not just the ability to secure the inmates and secure the facility itself. It is also a prison being what it is. It's like a cauldron that's bubbling all the time. And you have to make sure you keep that lid on, because the last time we had serious unrest at the prison, we know exactly what happened. Glenderry burned, and there was a lot of unrest that cost the government a lot of money and serious dislocation for the penal system in Barbados, and traumatized a lot of people who were involved in it. So from December 31st, 2020 until, let's say, about mid-February, Madam Chair, there was nothing more important to me than resolving the issues at the prison, getting the system under control, us putting into action the things that we had prepared for in theory, and be able to put ourselves almost as a blueprint as to how to manage COVID in a prison setting. And interestingly enough, Madam Chair, a number of the other Caribbean territories who then got COVID coming into their prison population reached out to Barbados for some feedback as to how we managed it, and they used us as a bit of an example as the best practice, because we did get it under control relatively quickly. What that entailed, though, Madam Chair, is that the shift of persons who were on when the COVID was identified had to immediately go into quarantine. So all of the prison officers, all of the staff had to go into quarantine. The shift that was coming in had to be kept separate from the shift that was in and going out. We had to manage the persons coming into the new shift in, and they came in knowing that they would have to be in Her Majesty's Prisons Lodge resident until such time as you're able to get clearance and through testing and through quarantining for the others who were out to come back in. So all those who were in went to quarantine in various hotels and whatnot. Those who were out, who should technically speaking be COVID free, then came in to pick up the duties. And they were locked in there, Madam Chair, for about 14 days. They could not go home to their families. In many instances, they had what they came with, and arrangements had to be made for them to get other stuff in. But you reported for duty one day and then could not see your family again for another 14 days. One of the prison officers, Madam Chair, I understand, I think his wife had just given birth. So it was that sort of situation. Now, we try not to accumulate overtime at the prison. But in this situation where persons are living in the prison for 14 days, then they have to pick up their duties and everybody else's duties. So the overtime that was generated by the persons who were there was necessary, unavoidable, and it had to be paid for. I went down to the prison, Madam Chair, to explain, and I gave an undertaking at that point in time that we would do right by the prison officers who were doing right by us. Just to put it in perspective, Madam Chair, all of the other duties and tasks that would normally go on in a prison, all the other duties and tasks that were normally going on in prison were actually done by those prison officers. So you had the prison officers cutting the grass, right? You had the prison officers doing the cleaning that the ancillary staff would normally do. And they stepped up marvelously to the task. So I want to pause right here, right now, to shout out and to commend the officers who sacrificed over and above what they ever thought that they would have to do. They got a taste of what it was like to be in prison, quite frankly. They performed their task admirably. I even want to shout out the prisoners, Madam Chair, because it was not an easy time. It was a very difficult time with tensions high, and the prison population itself doubled down. A lot of the negativity and a lot of what we were expecting and preparing to possibly happen in the prison did not happen. The communication was had with the prisoners. They understood what was going on. They understood when somebody was sick. They were notified, you were extracted, you were into quarantine. It flowed as best as we could have possibly hoped for, because at the critical time, everybody pulled their weight. Hierarchy of the prison officers, and the prisoners themselves. We also got tremendous help from the Royal Barbados Police Force, who stepped in to do perimeter management and maintenance. We, in addition, got some yeoman service. Madam Chair, I can't call his name because I did not seek permission before, but we were lent an officer from the Barbados Defense Force who had no history in the prison. He stepped in and took operational control of the prison during this time, and he managed it fantastically. So all that was left now to do was to do the accounting and ensure that all who put in their overtime and all who did the work got the full compensation for it. There was some disquiet about that recently, but the wheels of government turn slowly. But this was a priority for us, and I am pleased to say that the initial part of this supplementary in the sum of $670,940 is to compensate those who performed over and above in accordance with the hourly rate attributable to their tasks and their status, to ensure that nobody was unfair and everybody has gotten their due. So once this has passed, Madam Chair, I will push to see that those persons get paid as quickly as possible. I'm not talking about Christmas gift. I would like to make this a Republic gift, Madam President. Sorry, Madam Chair. That was a Freudian slip. I was thinking Republic and it came out. Sorry, Madam Chair. The other part of the supplementary is to deal with the government industrial school. And this is in the amount of $1.735 million. Now, everybody as well knows the issues that we had with the government industrial school, and the spotlight was focused on the girls section of the government industrial school at Barrows. I think that can had been kicked down the road for a very long time. For a while, we knew that the facilities at Barrows were not what was entirely adequate for the purpose for which Barrows existed. I did a surprise tour at Barrows following some reports of a student there who reported, or it was reported that she was mistreated. we did a surprise tour at Barrows. And by the time we left that facility, we knew that we could not continue up there as it was. It either had to be massively overhauled or arrangements had to be made for the facility to be closed down and the students moved. Simple things, like on the face of it, you would get a report saying that Barrows has these facilities, including a netball court, a tennis court, and whatnot. But you go out there and the netball court is the tennis court. The tennis court, that net has not been stretched since Adam was a lad. The netball court has one broken net and the other net was laying down in some bush that we know it was not, the facility was not adequate. My conscience could not allow me to allow that to continue much longer. The other thing as well, and a practical consideration, if something happened to one of those children, where Barrows is in St. Lucie, by the time an ambulance got to Barrows and then got the resident down to the QEH, Madam Chair, we're talking about an hour plus, an hour and 20 minutes. It is not an ideal location for that facility. We started immediately looking around trying to figure out, okay, what do we do? If we have to close Barrows, if we have to relocate the residents, where do we put them? Right? And that was the biggest thing. There was no immediate facility closer that was conducive, that was purpose-built, that was even suitable, that we could immediately relocate and continue operations as it was. We then consulted very widely in association with the member for St. Thomas and other persons under her ministry, Madam Chair, including the UN, UNICEF. We did a very wide consultation as to what was the best course of action. We looked at the juvenile justice legislation. We looked at rehabilitation of the offenders. We looked at the whole suite of legislation we had. I mean, it wasn't just looking at the government industrial school. It was a full holistic examination and contemplation of all of the things that make up the matrix that deals with reform of young people in our reform system. Part of that was an examination of Barrows itself, the structure, the educational component, the curriculum, the staffing, what is necessary, what staff is necessary to actually give the proper care, exactly who should be actually going into that system, what are the alternatives to the system, what do we do if we change to the juvenile justice legislation, when that does come in, and the legislation looks more at intermediary steps, halfway housing, some other, trying to keep people out of the system so that those who do enter the system are the ones for whom there is no alternative and they actually need that penal type or reform type supervision. We looked at the recommendations with respect to the status offenses under the legislation, like wondering. It was a holistic examination, Madam Chair, and at some point in time, the Honourable Member for St. Thomas and I will likely have to present the findings of that entire exercise to the public of Barbados, because it's going to inform a lot of what we're going to see now going forward. But one of the things that definitely came out in all of our examinations was the fact that Barrows was not the best place. The facility was not suitable, and to continue there would be to disadvantage the residents who we have a duty to take care of as our children. They're children, wards of the state. And if you're a ward of the state, then the state is in loco parentis where you're concerned. And what that means is a Latin term, but what it means is a child entrusted to the state, we, the state, or who constitute the state, are the parents, the effective parents of that child so long as they're in our custody. So would I want that for my child? No, I would not. Would I feel comfortable with my child going lost way at Barrows? No, I would not. Am I satisfied that the curriculum there is sufficient? No, I am not. So in all of our looking around, sorry to take up so much time, but and I guess I will properly address the country on it more fully. But in all of our looking around, it was deemed that the easiest thing to do in this, for now, is to retrofit the boys' facility at Dodds, and there's adequate. There are a number of dorms there. There's sufficient dormitory space that we can house the girls. There's sufficient plant that it can be separated. There's sufficient that we can do separate classrooms and integrate certain things. So the educational, like the CXC tuition, like maths, English, you could probably do joint classes, but we could retrofit to accommodate the girls there. The boys' school had dormitory space to accommodate over 30 persons, and there were 5 boys in there. So all the rest of that is wasted. The Barrows, I think, had space to accommodate about the same amount, and there are 3 or 4 girls at Barrows now. So the best use of space would be to redesign, reappoint, and renovate Dodds to accommodate both the boys and the girls, while we then fine-tune what we're doing going forward and look at a purpose-built facility for more serious offenders going forward. But all of that to say, Madam Chair, is that the press has been asking me, everybody's been asking me, and this now says exactly what we as a government are looking to do. So the $1.735 million, Madam Chair, is what is expected to be spent for the rest of this financial year. We'll cover the rest in the estimates, in our estimates for next year. But the priority for us now is to retrofit the dorms, create fencing so we can do adequate separation, put everything in place that we can properly separate the boys from the girls, while being able to do an integrated approach where it's necessary for the educational classes. And that is what is covered by this supplementary. I don't expect it to be contentious. I think probably everybody expected this to come, but I can tell you now, Madam Chair, that we are here. So I ask that the supplementary in the total sum of $2.406831 million, broken down with $670,940 for the overtime for the prison, and $1.735891 million for the government industrial school, that this do stand par.
Second. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm not going to be contentious, but just to offer a few thoughts or raise a few queries. If we accept what the Honorable Minister has said in relation to the prison, I do accept that. He is an honorable man. It would seem as though that there's a level of tranquility and a seeming acceptable and desirable order of degree of discipline and order among the prison inmate population, even when they were going through the serious threat of the COVID presence at the institution. But if we set that in the context of other concerns which have arisen out of the institution and in the public space around the operation of the prison, it would seem as though, therefore, we hear the minister clearly, we have more problems with the prison management and leadership and prison staff than we do with the prison inmate population.
Madam Chair,
Member for
I
St.
raise
Christchurch
on a
East.
point of order, and this point of order is so obvious, I should not even have to raise. The Honorable Leader of the Opposition should know better. I did not say that, Madam Chair. I did not imply that. I did not insinuate that. That is entirely a misrepresentation of what I said. I commended all of the prison officers. I said I was happy with the effort from the top to the bottom. So there's nothing I said that could take him to where he is, Madam Chair, and that's a deliberate mislead.
Thank you. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
I think the honorable member honestly is misled, but not by anything I said or did. I simply said, if I might repeat a little more slowly for the understanding of the honorable member, he did commend the prison inmate population for their conduct, especially during the COVID crisis prison. I accept also that he did commend the prison staff for their commitment and discipline, especially with reference to working beyond the call of duty during that time to keep things in check. All I'm saying is, if we accept what the minister is saying, and I most certainly do, if you twin that with other aspects of information coming out of the prison, not mentioned by the minister himself today, and other aspects in terms of prison operations that are being talked about in the public, reported on in the public, even attracting the attention of the court. All I'm saying is, there's nothing the minister said today in that. I'm not putting these words in his mouth. All I'm saying is that if you look at the total situation, what he said, and with up against what other information has been disseminated in public, even at the level of the court, it would seem that we have bigger problems with the prison staff and management than we do with the inmate population. That's all I'm saying, and I clearly did not intend to misrepresent anything, and I don't think that I am. And that is an interesting situation. And perhaps there are things in the contemplation of the minister and the government and the appropriate authorities to address whatever issues related to management and staff at the prison now plague the prison with the potential to cause disruption or turbulence within the operations of the prison. Minister himself did say, we have had a crisis in the past which erupted at the former prison location because of turbulence existing in the institution, and that cap, that lid blew. We do not want to see a repeat of that. Now, the dynamics that can cause the cap to blow in an institution like a prison may very well have to do with the prison population, but they may also have to do with prison staff and management. And I'm simply saying, I caution the minister that diligent attention is given to this, and I'm simply saying that I believe that the minister and the relevant authorities have this matter clearly in view and in vogue, and intend to do their best to ensure that we do not have problems emanating not from the prison inmate side, but from the prison staff or prison management side, because some of this has come to the view of the public, some of it has even attracted the attention of the court. That is all I'm saying with respect to that. There's a stigma attaching to DODS. There has always been a stigma attaching to DODS. The stigma is even greater now since the adult prison is also located at the site we call DODS. Same precincts, though not the same precise spot. Now we are carrying our female wards back to the DODS location. And I wonder if any thought is being given to the matter of stigmatization. I have always felt that that proximity established between the adult population and the youth ward population in our institutions would serve the unintended objective of adding to the stigma associated with DOD itself. So we carry these people from Barrows back to DODS, and I wonder if any thought is given to the fact that we may be adding to the stigmatization to them at that very early phase of their lives. Unless we look at other things with respect to the operations and management of the institution, what we may end up doing is simply relocating one undesirable situation from the north to the south, from one place to another. If we relocate our wards at Barrows, we do not treat the staff deficiencies, and it would seem to me that in the recent upheavals and eruptions associated with the Girls Industrial School at Barrows, that we had perhaps some semblance, more than a semblance, of deficiencies among the operations and management of the staff. We may simply be transferring deviancy among our wards from the north to the south unless we treat to those things. So Barrows might be a bad location for all the reasons the Honorable Minister mentioned, and for other reasons, and there may very well need to be a relocation. But unless while relocating, other things are to be addressed. And I hear the voice of the Honourable Minister quite clearly that there are other things that he and the Honourable Member for St. Thomas in her ministerial capacity will be addressing and hopefully bring into the House. And it was that was my particular concern, my principal concern I wanted to stand. I'm happy to hear that these things are being looked at and that they will be brought to the House, because we want to know what is there going to be put in place, what will be done to ensure improvement of the treatment of the wards, the female wards, and the male wards. Since you're going back to Dawes, I think that what came to the public view was that it seemed that the girls were not being as properly treated as they should have been. And what about improvements and enhancement to the training program? It is not only a penal institution, but it is an institution that has a significant, should have significant component of training and rehabilitation. And I hear the promise of the minister that curriculum and stuff like that will be addressed. Those will be my concerns. And if there is to be any discipline employed with reference to staff who were seriously at fault for recent happenings down at Barrows, I think that those are matters to be seriously and urgently addressed, so you avoid repeats down in the south as what would have transpired in the north. So no attempt, Madam Chair, to misrepresent. I would never seek to misrepresent my honorable friend.
Thank you. Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Madam Chair, with that, I beg to move that his head do stand part.
Question is that head 33 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it. Honourable Leader of the House.
That you do now report progress to His Honour the Speaker, and beg your leave to sit again.
Seconder. Question is that I do now report to His Honour the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. To report progress to His Honour the Speaker. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman of committees has reported progress and asks for leave to sit again. Honorary Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I therefore beg to move the suspension of the sitting until 2:15 p.m. this afternoon.
The question is that this honorable chamber be suspended until 2:15 p.m. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands suspended until 2:15 p.m.